Namaskar, good afternoon, Adab. Welcome to another edition of Delhi Book Fair 2021, hosted by pragatiE Vichaar and curated by the extremely talented Shabri Prasad. We'd have loved to host you all at the Delhi Book Fair ground in a physical setup amidst the enticing bibliosphere. How much we miss all of that. But nevertheless, grateful for the virtual meetup. The flair is as good as beckoning, and it is the fourth session of the day. And though the post-lunch sessions usually feel heavy, we promise you to ease out the load with an extremely interesting conversation ahead. I am particularly excited for this conversation because the speaker today is someone I deeply admire. In fact, the entire corporate world deeply admires him. If I were to put it out, let's welcome Mr. Shiv Kumar, Shiv, as we popularly call him. Hello there.
Thank you, Kena. Good afternoon. It's absolute delight to be with you. And thank you, Shabri, for inviting me to do this session at the Delhi Book Fair. It's a pleasure to be with you, Kena, this afternoon.
Absolutely a pleasure for us. We all know Shiv. He's a management thinker, currently the group executive president, corporate strategy at Aditya Birla Group. Previously, Shiv was the chairperson and chief executive officer at PepsiCo Holdings Private Limited, India. And prior to that, he was CEO for emerging markets at Nokia. Well, how do I even put you the context across of today's conversation? Okay, should money be the primary factor in picking a job? When do I pursue an MBA or a second MBA for that matter? Should I switch industries to move ahead? This and so many more dilemmas we confront on a daily basis while we make, quote unquote, the right career choice for ourselves. 16 years in corporate, and trust me, every day I keep asking myself 100 questions. And I'm sure many of us do too. So today we get a chance to hear from the man himself, from Shiv, on how to address this mess in which we are absolutely caught up. His book, The Right Choice, delves deep into the 10 frequently faced dilemmas in a person's career. And it's available on Amazon. Do check out. It's available also in most of the leading stores. You'll get a copy there. So to begin with, Shiv, what took you to writing a book addressing career dilemmas after having spent a long number of years in the top leadership positions across some of the best companies of the world?
Yes, thank you, Kena. So that's the book. It's The Right Choice, Resolving 10 Career Dilemmas for Outstanding Success. And I'll explain to you shortly in terms of your questions. So the 10 career dilemmas that I have listed here are: is money the most important variable in a career? Should I do a second MBA? Should we live apart in order to progress a career? While working elsewhere, should I rejoin the previous organization that I had quit? Should I take a sabbatical? Should I switch industries in a career? Should I take up an overseas job? Should I turn entrepreneur? Should I or not join a board? And what are the dilemmas of being a CEO? So these are the 10 ones. You know, around 2000, about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, a lot of people asked me, Shiv, why don't you write a book? Because I used to write regularly for the Economic Times. I've written regularly for the Hindu Business Line. I've written regularly for Fortune, etc. And I said, yeah. And as always, since I was a CEO, I shortlisted absolutely boring topics, things like, multinationals and, the origin of multinationals. Is a British company. How do British companies, American companies, and Finnish companies work? All utter rubbish. Okay, in my mind, I thought, it was very profound, etc. No, there wouldn't have been a market for one in that thing. But somehow, because of work pressures or whatever it is, I decided not to do. Then Radhika Marwa, my editor from Penguin, met me, I think around 2018 or 19, and said, "Now you have no choice. You better write it. Okay, we are not going out of this room if you do not say yes." Or some words to that effect. So finally, I signed up. And then I was talking to my wife, and I asked her, look, I want to write something, and I'm tossing around some ideas in my head. She said, you talk to a lot of people. You do a lot of corporate speeches. What do people talk to you about? I said, the one thing they talk to me about is their careers, how to manage their careers. So she said, then why don't you write a book on careers? So I said, okay. Then I thought about it and I said, what are the questions which people have asked me? Okay. So for example, when I go and speak to young MBAs in India, they ask me which companies to join, sir. Okay, some people ask me, should I do a second MBA? When I talk to young MBAs in Harvard or Wharton, they say, Shiv, I have this idea. Do you think this is a good entrepreneurial idea? So they're very different. So then I started with a list of 15 dilemmas and about 50 people. Then I shortlisted it to 10 dilemmas and about 22 people. And I picked these 22 people in the book, and they're mentioned on the back of the book here. And I picked them because they were all willing to be very honest and tell the truth as it is. You know, many times when you're successful, a lot of people say, you know what, it was a breeze. I started, I ended, everything was fine. But, you know, when somebody takes a sabbatical, you know the pain, you wonder, am I doing right? Will I have a job when I go back? You know, when I want to do a second MBA, look, you know what, I want to leave a job. How will my parents fund it? Right. You know, when I go back to the old company I was, like, am I eating humble pie? How will people see me? Will people see me as somebody who has failed outside? Yes. You know, so I really wanted people who will tell the truth as it is. And that's why I chose those 22 people with great care. And they are the real stars of the book. So that's how the book happened. Thank you.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad we have this book in front of us. This is going to be our go-to book for so many reasons, right from the beginning of the career till probably the end, because you also talk about the dilemmas, CEO and top leadership position. Okay, so the next question is this book, how much of relevance will this book be to various generations? So when we talk of baby boomers or Gen X or millennials, Gen Z, they greatly differ from each other in terms of preferences, attitude, lifestyle. So how are these dilemmas different for different generations, or are they the same?
No, they are very different. A common dilemma right through a career, Kena, is money. Because see, it is one variable which nobody thinks they have enough of. You know, even if you have 100 crores, you think you have no money. If you have 1 crore, you think you have no money. So money there is, it's like a river. It just keeps flowing and the banks keep expanding. You know, so that's what I would say. But to your specific question, if you're a Gen Z, you would be asking yourself, what's the role of money in my career? Should I be doing a second MBA? Should I work overseas? Should I turn an entrepreneur? Those are the kind of questions. If you're a millennial, again, you'll ask about second MBA. Should I live apart? Talk about money. Should I take a sabbatical? Because a lot of young people want sabbaticals these days. They want to take a month off, 2 months off, go explore the world, come back, etc. And should I go overseas? That's another millennial dilemma. If you're a baby boomer and a senior manager, should I live apart? Should I go for a CEO job? Which type of board should I pick up? Should I move industries? Should I go overseas? These are the type of questions. So the way I stacked these dilemmas was virtually like a career path. You know, as you go through a career path, these are the typical things that you encounter. That's how I stack them.
Okay, got that. Since you talked of money, I need to ask you, I read this, probably you've spoken this quote in one of your IM convocations in which you say, don't measure yourself by the money you make. If you're good, the money will follow you. However, if you have money, it doesn't mean you're good.
Absolutely right.
Very good. So what is that very good that you're talking about?
Yeah, so here's the thing. For whatever set of reasons, Kena, right or wrong, I'm not going to be a judge on that. See, media talks about who are the top 10 earning CEOs, who is a billionaire, who's a millionaire. So we've come to measure ourselves with the money we make. Money has become, the measure of how good you are, which is wrong. How good you are is your capability. Money is an output. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying money is unimportant. The Beatles said it many years ago. Money can't buy me love. So money is a hedge against sorrow. But money is not a vitamin for happiness. It doesn't. Money never substitutes happiness ever. So when I say, aim to be good, I mean, bring the best version of yourself to work every day. Learn, unlearn, have the discipline, have the energy, have the focus. If you do those kind of things, which company will not want you? If you are a valued employee in the company, in the marketplace, and you're contributing to society, money will follow you. You'll get the best roles, etc. Okay, so don't aim for short-term measures, play the long game, because a good career is a marathon. And next thing, Kena, all the money you make, suppose you retire at 60, and let's take you have in your bank, let's take, I'm just saying 100 rupees. 120 of that is made after the age of 40 or 45. It's not made before. But surprisingly, a number of young people switch jobs between 23 and 35 for 5,000 rupees each and 10,000 rupees. It's not worth it. Okay, that's what I say about money.
But is success and money not directly proportional?
Not necessary. In some cases, yes, some cases, no. I think the way I would say it, you should know your value in the market and you should be paid fairly for your talent. Okay, that's how I would look at it. And there will always be situations where somebody gets more, somebody gets less. That's only natural. Okay, and that can be a matter of perception, that can be a matter of reality. Okay, that's fine, it doesn't matter. But as long as you are committed to learning, to contributing to the organization you work for, I think you will turn out well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so often there also comes a choice between getting into an employment after graduation directly, or say after post-graduation directly, taking up an overseas job like you talked about, or going for higher studies in place, which will take a longer time before one steps into employment. So what does one do with this dilemma? How does
my input on that would be, if you have an inclination either to do a master's degree or a business degree, go for it at the earliest, because it becomes more difficult after that. Why does it become more difficult? Because you get set in a job, you don't have the time to prepare, you don't have the time to reflect. So, it becomes and if you're very sure that you want to go for an MBA or a master's degree, why don't you do it earlier? Why go for 2 years? And if you do it for 2 years, then you go back, do an MBA, the job market does not value those 2 years.
Okay.
Again, they will tell you to come and start as a management trainee. If you do 5 years or 7 years, then again, the job market says, look, we don't know where to fit you. So you have to be very clear. If you are very clear in your mind, I want to do a business degree, the earlier you do it, the better.
What if one has a very lucrative overseas job in hand?
That's okay. If you have a very lucrative overseas job in hand, I can guarantee you're very good, and you'll also have a very lucrative MBA, admission also. Or you just need to, apply your mind to it, and you'll be fine.
So if you have one right now, you'll have probably 3 years.
Absolutely right. The earlier you do it, the better. That's what I would say. Like, it's what people say about, couples, right? The earlier you have the kid, it is better, rather than having it later and then, thinking about it. So it's the same way. The earlier you can crack your degree, the better it is for you.
Considering that MBA or any of the higher studies degree is also a kid, have it the earliest possible.
Absolutely right.
In your book, The Right Choice, you also say that India produces nearly 500,000 MBAs every year, but less than 5% of an IIM batch makes it to the CEO's office. And you also explain that merely possessing a degree from a prestigious institute does not guarantee a ticket to the corner office. So what would you have to say to the junior managers in terms of shaping up their career right from the beginning so that they actually manage to reach to the corner office?
Yes, Kena, you're amazing. You've read all my interviews, you've seen all my videos, you're quoting left, right, and center from all that. Yes, India, the world has 12,000 MBA colleges. India has between 4,000 and 5,000 of them. Assuming that each college has 100 MBAs or more, as an example, we produce 500,000 MBAs every year. Less than 19% of MBAs are employable according to the industry. Less than 19%. Now there are 23 IIMs. Okay, and almost every IIT has an IIM degree. IIT Bombay has one, IIT Madras has one, IIT Delhi has one, everybody has one. So the degree in a way has become just a label which you can get from anywhere. Okay, and if you look at any good batch, and now the size of the batch is between 400 and 500 in most IIMs. When the batches were even 200, 300, less than 5% of a batch makes it to CEO. Because a career is a marathon. You have to run the 42 kilometers plus. It is not a sprint. You cannot sprint 100 meters, get somewhere, take some rest, then sprint again. It doesn't work like that. So you have to prepare for the marathon, and you have to prepare for the long term. And a career is like, there'll be periods of stagnation and then again growth. It's not a sea, just going up all the time, etc. And if you're a young manager, I would say focus on learning. Focus on contributing to your company. In every job you do, give yourself at least 3 to 4 years. The first year you're learning on the job. The second year you're shaping the job. And the third year you're getting the results out of the shaping that you have done. Then at least you have some satisfaction that I have done something right, or I've done something wrong, or I've learned from this. A lot of people just land up in jobs for 18 months and say, I did this, I did that. When I look at CVs, they will say, you know what, I launched this brand. I say, you are part of the team which was involved in taking this brand from concept to market. You are not the guy who did it, or you're not the girl who did it. So being part of a process is important, but that doesn't give you the right to say that I did it.
Yes, totally agree with that. I have so many questions to ask you, Shiv, and we are almost half an hour down. I mean, really just so much to ask in just 15 minutes in hand that we have. Okay, I wanted to ask you, when is a good time to take sabbatical?
Say, why do people take sabbaticals? Today, both men and women are taking sabbaticals. In the past, only women took sabbaticals. Women took a sabbatical because the maternity leave those days was whatever, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And then if they had a challenge at home with the delivery or help, then women would take a sabbatical. Or, if they were moving cities or the husband was moving jobs, then the woman would take a sabbatical. If the kid had some special needs, either at school or college, and you wanted to be around, you take a sabbatical. But today, men are taking sabbaticals. I remember in PepsiCo, one of the guys, a very bright guy, he came and said, hey, Shiv, I wanted to take a sabbatical. I thought he was fooling me. I thought, this guy wants to get out of the company. He doesn't want to tell me the truth. And, he's just lying to me saying he's taking a sabbatical. But what he said was absolutely right. He took a sabbatical, didn't do anything for 6 to 9 months. After a year and a half, he took another job. Now, another person I have a lot of respect for, a chap called Mohit Raina, who worked for me in PepsiCo. He took a sabbatical because his father was unwell in Jamshedpur. He said, I need to look after my dad, Shiv, now. So he went away and took a sabbatical, looked after his dad, okay, and then came back to corporate life after 2-3 years. So today, a lot of the men are also doing this. So there are many reasons to take a sabbatical. But I think what a sabbatical does is it refreshes you, it energizes you. So if you believe you're in a rut, or you want that space, or you want that break, please do take it.
So if one needs a space to self-respect, become self-aware, should one first do it and then take sabbatical, or should one use sabbatical for self-respection and mulling over?
I think self-awareness and self-reflection, you almost need to do it every day, Kena. You have to look at your calendar to say, what did I do right today? What did I do wrong today? What did I learn? How is my week looking ahead? Am I well prepared for the meetings ahead? Okay. Am I making the right impact in the meetings that I want to make an impact? Am I communicating well? So that you have to do on a daily basis if you're a leader or you want to be a leader. So you cannot take a sabbatical to say, okay, now let me think about leadership. No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, yes, agree, totally. And there is a lot of thrust in executive these days to quit full-time salaried job for entrepreneurship or self-owned ventures or startups. Some have actually made it very big we have legacies before us. So what is your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs? Couple of
2/3, 63 to 64% of India wants to be an entrepreneur.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah, that's the style. It's the highest in the world, right? Incidentally. There's one other country, I think at 68, I forget the name, but India is the second highest. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur because they think they are in control. They think they can manage their life. They think they have a good idea and they think they'll make money. That's not true. Okay, I mentioned that less than 5% of a batch makes it to the corner office. Less than 1% of entrepreneurs are successful. Less than 1%. So it's very good to read about all these guys in the newspaper, but the hard work and the grind they go through to get there is not easy. You have so many rejections. You have rejections galore, etc. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, please ensure that you have a good idea, a differentiating idea. Hari Menon, who is in my book, says, a copycat idea is not an idea. And he said, hope is not a strategy. You cannot work like that.
Wow, that's the lineup for the day.
Yeah. Hope is not strategy. So many people get into entrepreneurship with hope more than anything else.
My goodness. I really think this session needs to be broadcast all over. There's so many around who need to get hang of these concepts before one takes a major life altering decision. I mean, I thank you very much for this conversation, in fact. I would also like to ask you, are the dilemmas of the CEOs also?
Oh yeah, there are a lot. See, the thing is, when you're a CEO, the first dilemma is whom do you trust? Whom do you trust as a CEO? Because everybody wants to be in your good books. Everybody wants to tell you what they think you want to hear. Okay, so you really have to be very clear. So one of the things I tend to do is I tend to ask the same stupid questions. I tend to ask for a lot of feedback just to see if people are telling me the truth or are people trying to wing it. Okay. And the other thing about being a CEO is you have to ensure that you orchestrate partnership in the ecosystem. You have to build partnerships. You have to bring people together. The other challenge or dilemma of being a CEO is you have to invest in the future. You have to invest in a few people for the future. You have to do that. Okay. The other thing about being a CEO is you have to be more disciplined than the rest of the organization. There are many CEOs I have seen, office opens at 9 o'clock. They used to saunter in at 10:30. Now, no organization has a respect for them. They will tolerate that kind of a person. Okay. So I always, any time, right through my career, I would be in the office by 7:38. I'd start. I would say 99.9% of the time I'm on time for all meetings. In my whole career, I've just missed 2 flights in 30 years of flying, So you have to measure yourself against a very high standard when you're a CEO. Because if you don't set the standard, people below you are watching you and saying, if he's not serious about it, then why should I be serious about it? So the biggest challenge of a CEO is being very, very disciplined. Sometimes I think you have to border on being, maniacal and very military type of decision, precision. If you don't do that, people will not follow you.
My God, which means that the role of a CEO, which looks very glamorous and that powerful, actually it takes a lot behind the scenes.
Absolutely, Kena. I've been a CEO half my career. Trust me, when you're a CEO, it's like you're under the microscope. Everything you do, the clothes you wear, the words you use, whom you smiled at in the meeting, whose back did you tap? Okay, every single thing is watched and analyzed to death. Trust me. Okay, so it's only over time that people get to trust you when they see that you're genuine and well-meaning in everything you do. It's very difficult to get people's trust because they want to pick what suits them and not the message that you're giving.
My goodness, that's so much of pressure that one has to handle.
It is. And finally, you also have to deliver after all that.
Wonder all CEOs are very brave and full of grit. No wonder they become icons. Okay, as you get into the middle management, I mean, neither junior, not very senior, this is the correct time. I've read in another of your interviews that you have insisted that this is the correct time to build a personal brand for oneself. So it could be by contributing to industries, bodies, associations, or writing on contemporary issues pertaining to the domain. So there could be several things. But do you think social media has an important role to play in making a personal brand?
Absolutely. See, today you have social media and you can start young. Almost everybody has a social media account today when they're in college itself. Okay, and maybe even younger. And the thing is, you have to be very clear. The digital media, okay, remembers everything and forgets nothing. Remember that. Now, whatever you ask me, whatever I've said, will be archived for the next 50 years, Kena. Both of us can't walk out of it.
Yes.
Somebody will have it somewhere. It will be on Facebook. It will be on somewhere or the other. It will be on YouTube or wherever it is. So you have to be very clear as to what you're going to talk about and what you're not going to talk about. That requires some maturity. So a lot of people ask me this question, and I tell you, young people, there are some topics which are a no-no. Do not discuss sex, religion, caste. All these are not worth it. Just don't. You might have a point of view, but keep it to yourself. Okay. Politics, not worth it. Whether you are pro-government, anti-government, pro-one party, keep it to yourself. That's a personal matter. You don't need to go public and start all this dialogue. You focus on what you are good at, which is your discipline, your job, etc. Okay. You don't need to, do everything else. If you contribute to the industry, you contribute to the success of others in your team and industry, I think that's the best way of building a brand, and there'll be enough opportunities. But social media is something that I would ask you to do, because in a future world, you'll need two brands in play. One is Kena, the brand, and one is NTPC, where Kena works. If NTPC is a good brand, it benefits Kena. If Kena is a good brand, NTPC is a good brand, that's dynamite. Then, many doors and windows will open for you. Okay. So, for example, Nokia at its prime, in 2010, anybody from Nokia was the most valued manager in the industry, because it was such a hot company. It was such a growth company. But come 2014-15, Nokia was not the same. So if you stayed longer in Nokia at that point of time, it actually hurt your CV value and your brand value. So you have to also judge your CV value in relation to the company that you work in.
Correct. But I have a little doubt here. If with your permission, I would like to put it forward. Why is it not desirable that social opinions or boisterous opinions can be put forward by?
So here's the thing. By definition, social media, let's take Kena writes something. Okay. Sabri will say fantastic, thumbs up. Shiv Kumar will say horrible, don't like.
Okay.
Now, you will get divided. If you do not say something interesting, people will not follow it. Okay. If you're not dividing opinion, then you do not get more likes and more views and more commentary going, etc. So it's very difficult being middle of the road and still generating content which is valuable, and still generating content which people say, hey, I like this content. Okay. It is giving me some value. So value does not come, I submit to you, by staying in the extremes, which is what I see on social media many times. We don't need to stay in the extreme, especially since you are building a career.
Okay.
Would you like it if your company stayed in the extreme? The answer is no. Would you like it if your boss stayed in the extreme? The answer is no. So one of the things right through my speaking assignments I always do is, I never want to say anything which makes my employees say, you know what, this guy let us down. I never want to do that, because the employees are also part of it. There are people listening to me on this call. Let's take. I don't want somebody to go back to my company and say, you know what, your boss spoke rubbish. He was no good. I don't want that. I want them to feel proud of what I contribute to society. So that's how we should think about social media. Do it, be a positive influence. Don't be a dividing influence.
Got it. Okay. And that's a very important takeaway from this session. Shiv, we'll also like to know the person Shiv is, the author Shiv is, and not just talk about your book, not just talk about your leadership. Also want to know who is Shiv behind the leadership. So you graduated from a couple of very reputed institutions. You have to your name IIT Madras, then IIM Calcutta, then Wharton School. Do you think studying from a prestigious brand actually adds to shaping up your career and contributing to your success?
I think wherever you study, it shapes your career and your thinking. I think your classmates shape it, your professors shape it, the industry interactions that your school has or college has with people, they shape it. I think your extracurricular activities in campus shape it. Your co-curricular activities in campus shape it. So I think growing up in a school and a college has a huge influence on who you turn out to be. Yes.
But the brand does not matter as much.
This is what I said. And as you quoted in one of the convocation speeches, I said that an MBA is a degree, it's not a guarantee. And what we just discussed, if less than 5% of the batch makes it to the top, then what are the balance 95% doing? There's no guarantee, right? So you can be from any IIM, you can be from Harvard, you can be from Wharton, but that doesn't guarantee you immunity. It doesn't. You have to still work very hard. What it does for you, I must admit, it opens the first door.
Okay.
Probably opens the second window. That's it. After that, it's your performance and how you do it. It possibly gives you a network, but that network is available in whichever school you study.
Correct. Okay, I think this is a good juncture to give a shout out to everybody who's watching us. If there are questions that you would like to put forward to Shiv, this is the time. Please put your questions in the chat box, the Facebook Live or the events window, wherever you're watching, and we'll take it ahead. We still have a few more minutes with us. The next question I'd like to ask you, Shiv, is that we've read that you have been an avid reader, and you've been putting across your book reviews, your reading lists to public as well. So do you think reading has shaped you become the person who you are? And what's your reading routine? Do you still find time to read?
Absolutely. So I do. Here's what, going back to the question about money. If you don't learn, Kena, you won't earn. Remember this. Learning contributes to earning, because everybody wants people who are future ready. They don't want people who are past masters. People who are future ready is what people want. Yes, I tend to read a lot of books, and books which I like, which I believe the wider social audience would like. I summarize the book and I put it out. My wife keeps challenging me, saying, you read so many books, you read so much junk. Why do you read this? It's the same type of book about leadership, about managing this, that, etc. And I tell her, even if this book gives me 2 new concepts, I'm happy with it. So if there are 2 ideas in a book, I'm happy to pick it up. That's how I look at it. Okay. The place I learn the most from, Kena, is biographies. Okay. Biographies are a wonderful place. You read about Obama's biography, you read about Sir Harvey Jones' biography, etc. It's a wonderful place in terms of how they encountered life and the choices they made. So yes, I believe in reading. In the pandemic, I've done a lot more digital reading, thanks to Ken. I'm still a guy who likes the physical book. Yes. Okay, so you can see that this is a physical book I have. Okay, so this is a physical book I have. So I have 3-4 books in front of me right now. Okay, so I like physical books because there's a joy in reading. And when I read, I tend to highlight, and then I go back and input it into my laptop and then make the summary and send it out. So that's how I do.
Take notes and send it out.
Yes, I do it personally. So it's not, a lot of people think that I used to delegate to my secretary. I've never done that. I do it myself.
Okay.
But it helps me remember also. That's the other.
Which also makes me want to ask you, do you read simultaneously a couple of books, or do you read one book at a time?
Sometimes it happens that, I might be reading 2-3 books at a time. Like, for example, I'm reading a wonderful book, which I'll possibly summarize in 2-3 days, by Alan Woolridge of The Economist, on meritocracy. Why meritocracy is one of the greatest ideas of human civilization, and why has it stood the test of time. It's a wonderful book. And he traces meritocracy across class, across the various cultures, and why do we value merit. Okay, it's a very nice book. So I'm reading that. At the same time, I might pick up something else, and I might shift between 1 or 2 books. But by and large, I would finish a book properly before I went to something else.
Okay, great. And you're also an avid sports watcher.
Yes.
So what about sports, and who are the sports icons who impress you?
A lot. So I played a lot of cricket, I played a lot of tennis, I played squash, I played golf, I played football, I played a lot of game, thanks to being in boarding school, etc. And I believe sport is a great teacher for business, and especially for teams. Take a game like tennis. I'm a great fan of Roger Federer. I'm a great fan of John McEnroe also. And a lot of people say, Shiv, how can you be a fan of McEnroe and Federer at the same time? And that's the exact point I make. I say, look, Federer is so smooth. He's such an ambassador for the game. Yes. So you need in every team, in every company, those ambassadors, people who do everything right. They're very good, all that, etc. Equally, if you want an exciting workplace, you need the John McEnroes. I'll walk a mile to go and watch John McEnroe play, because John McEnroe was a genius, absolute genius. He didn't maybe follow all the rules which were prescribed in tennis and the way you are supposed to behave, but he was an absolute genius. Becker was a genius like that. So in any game, you need the characters like a Becker and a McEnroe, and you need the good guys following the rules like a Lendl, like a Federer, like a Andy Murray, etc. And teams and corporations can only work when you have characters and people who follow rules. Wow. There will be some people who will break rules, but remember, they're geniuses in themselves. So that's the reason why I really love to follow John McEnroe as well as Federer.
That's so well put. There's another a line from you in one of your interviews that I read, which really touched me. You say that think of life as 3 glass balls that you're juggling. And if the first is the career ball, which brings to you benefits of money, position, benefits, etc. The second are family and friends. And the third is your health.
Health, absolutely.
Yes. And with you having been in topmost leadership position for more than a decade now, even longer than that, how have you managed to balance the three glass balls?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. 2/3 of all the family challenges we have as individuals are family history. Suppose you have something, it's basically from a family tree, a previous generation, the generation before that. And in many cases, you don't have the records for it, Kena. Now there are records, there are no records for it. So what can you do? You can ensure that you stay healthy. What does staying healthy mean? Staying healthy means you eat well, you exercise well, and you take as little stress as possible. Okay, so that's what you need to do. And at the top, you will get a hell of a lot of stressful jobs. It's only natural because there are competitors out to knock you, there's society out to knock you. It's not easy. Okay, so you have to ensure that you can stay fit. That's completely in your hands. And if you can do that, just ensure that you're fine. The mistake a lot of people do, and it's just not at CEO level, Kena, when people finish from an MBA and join a company, their lifestyle goes a dramatic change. Mm-hmm. In the hostel, you had to eat on time, 7 o'clock in the morning breakfast, 1 o'clock lunch, 7 o'clock in the evening supper or whatever it is. When you start working, you tend to overeat. You tend to eat a lot more fast food. Suddenly you'll recognize in the first 2 years, people put on a hell of a lot of weight when they start work.
Yes.
Okay, that's the time actually is the most dangerous time.
Yes, correct. What about mental health? How do you keep a check on your emotional well-being?
Difficult. I always say that, you need what I call emotional anchors. The emotional anchors you have can be your parents, can be friends, can be your spouse, can be your boss. Okay, you need to be able to discuss with somebody what's happening. And as long as you're able to do that, I think you're okay. Okay, but never work in a place where you believe that you are stressed out. It's not worth it. If you are in a job where there is too much stress and you're not happy about it, okay, then why go through it? No, I'm sure find some other job which keeps you happy.
I think that's a great point you made. We all tend to get complacent or tend to compromise and not call it a quit despite getting stressed. And probably that is what hits us later.
Yeah, but if you want a job, remember, you have to be damn good. You have to invest in yourself. So it's a catch-22. If you don't invest in yourself, you will not get the opportunities. If you don't invest in yourself, then you have to suffer the vagaries of the boss or the organization.
So true. We have almost come to the wrap of the session, but before we call it a complete wrap, we would like to know that one dilemma from you which actually caught you out of all the 10 that you've spoken.
Oh, there are many. For example, one of the things I didn't do, which I believe I could have done, was in the early 30s, I could have gone abroad to work. I didn't do that because my company, then Hindustan Lever, said, no, there are enough roles here. So, don't bother to think outside, going outside, etc. So that I think would have maybe added something to me in a different way. Okay, so that's the only thing. But as I say, when I look back, I'm quite happy where I am. So if I were to repeat it, I think 90% I would do the same. So I'm quite happy.
Lovely. Okay, on the last note. Now this is really going to be the last one. What do you have to say to the readers of the book, The Right Choice, before they pick it up?
Yeah, I would say, look, whatever stage of career you are in, this book will give you something to think about. It will be food for thought. That much I guarantee you. And next, this is not a book with any jargon in it. It's written in the simplest possible manner. I have written it. I never believe in jargon. There's no MBA jargon. There's no business jargon, nothing. It's possibly the simplest management book ever written. So do pick it up and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Shiv. It was lovely conversing with you. So much to learn, so much to take away from this session. This is certainly going to be one of the go-to books of the generation, I'm telling you, because of the actual real life dilemmas that we encounter on everyday basis, but we tend to ignore. So on this note, we'll call the session a wrap here. Thank you very much to each and everyone who has joined us during this period. A successful career is not a straight line. It has many twists and turns where you're faced with difficult choices. So this book helps you navigate the difficult situations and win in your career, which is something all of us want. Pick it up from Amazon, pick it up from your leading bookstores, stay connected. And Shiv is always a message away. You can find him over LinkedIn. He's very active here. He has huge number of followers here. And we all really admire him so much. Thank you, Shiv. Thank you, pragatiE, and thank you, Shabri. Have a great day ahead, people. Bye-bye. Namaste.